This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Squiz Kids! It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Bryce Corbett. It's Tuesday, November 29. In Squiz Kids Today, school kids versus rats in New Zealand. Protests spread in China. Mars bars go green and celebrating the first ever video game. That's what's making news, kids style.
The lowdown.
A group of school kids in New Zealand have taken conservation to a whole new level, becoming expert rat catchers as part of a competition aimed at bringing kiwis back into their backyards. At the very southern tip of New Zealand is an island called Stewart Island. It's home to about 20,000 kiwis, the flightless bird for which New Zealand is famous. It's also home to some 450 humans and one single primary school. The kids at that school recently took part in a rat catching competition to see who could catch the most rats as part of an effort to rid the island of introduced predators. You see, rats are a problem on Stewart Island. Most of New Zealand's birds, including the kiwi, evolved without introduced species like rats, stoats and cats as predators. As a result, they lay their eggs on the ground, which makes for an easy meal for rats. With the encouragement of their teacher, the kids at Half Moon Bay Primary School were all given rat traps and told to go and catch as many rats as they could in the course of 100 days. At the end of 100 days, 40 students caught more than 600 rats, with each kid competing for a series of prizes, including for the most rats caught. That prize went to Bella, who caught 64 rats, a prize for the rat with the strangest tail, one for the rat with the biggest teeth, and even a prize for the largest rat, which went to a rodent measuring 45 centimetres, so just under half a metre long. Ugh. I've stuck a link to an awesome video news report in today's episode notes, but be warned, it's kind of gross. There are lots of dead rats in it. The Junior Rat Catcher program is all part of New Zealand's impressive goal to become predator-free by 2050. We're talking about the complete eradication of pests. Get it? Eradication? Eradication? Ah, yes, there's that dad joke alarm. Always spoiling my fun.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in China, where a fire in a high-rise apartment building has led to protests all around the country. It all started when a fire broke out in an apartment building in a Chinese city, and firefighters seemingly weren't able to get close to it because of China's strict COVID lockdown laws. Lots of people in China are angry with the government and its strict rules forcing people to stay indoors. And so protests have popped up all over the country. And now protesters have worked out a clever way to get their message across. They've been taking to the streets holding up a set of mathematical equations on a piece of paper. The equations have been identified as the Friedman equations, a set of equations that govern the expansion of space. But that's not the point. The point seems to be that Friedman sounds a lot like free man, which these protesters seem to be suggesting they are not. Chinese authorities are notorious for censoring information and news. Censoring news means only showing bits that you approve of, not the whole story. But by holding up Friedman equations, the question is whether the protesters have found a way to get around the censors and still get their message across to the wider world.
Pop Culture Corner.
Video gamers, today is a really important day. Because it was on this day 50 years ago that the very first video game was invented. It was called Pong, and it was super basic, like ridiculously basic. And I've stuck a link to video of it in today's episode notes because you honestly have to see it to properly understand how far we have come from the days of Pong to the days of Fortnite and Rocket League and NBA 2K that we know and love today. Pong was created by a company called Atari, which was the Nintendo of its day. It was huge. And fun fact, it employed a young computer engineer by the name of Steve Jobs, who would go on to create a little company called Apple. The gaming industry is now worth a staggering $296 billion worldwide. That's billion with a B. And it all started with Pong. So gamers, happy Pongiversary.
Squiz Kids salutes.
Normally this segment is given over to people doing impressive things, but today I'm giving a Squiz Kids salute to chocolate bars. 1, because they're delicious, and 2, because the makers of some of our favourite chocky bars, think Mars bars, Snickers and Milky Ways, are swapping their plastic wrappers for something more environmentally friendly. From April next year, the popular treats will start appearing on supermarket shelves in a paper wrapper that you can pop straight into your recycling bin. How cool is that? Just another reason to stuff your face with chocolate. In moderation, of course. And always part of a balanced diet. You know, lots of fruit and vegetables too. You know the drill. Can you hear those bells? That's a reminder that we've only got 10 days to go to bring some joy to families in need this Christmas. What in the world of stocking stuffers am I talking about? I'm talking about the Squiz Kids Christmas charity campaign in association with Lego. In a nutshell, for every Lego build that's created and shared to Instagram, tagging Squiz Kids and using the hashtag #BuildToGive, the generous folk at Lego will give a Lego set this Christmas to a family in need. How cool is that? And so it's up to you how far we spread the Christmas joy this festive season. The more we build, the more families get a free Lego set. Already we've had some awesome builds shared to our Instagram @SquizKids, and a huge thank you to all who've been busy building already. We're currently at 180 builds, but I reckon Squiz Kids are more generous than that. I reckon that if we put our minds to it, tell our friends, maybe even make it an end-of-year classroom group activity, we can easily crack the 500 mark. Do we dare to dream we might even hit 1,000? And a big shout out while I'm here to the Year 6s at Livingston Primary School in Vermont South, who managed to mix maths and giving back to the community with a series of awesome builds. You guys rock. So, don't just sit there, get building. Create as many builds as you want, and just be sure to tag @SquizKids when you share a photo of it to Instagram and use the hashtag #BuildToGive and help bring the joy this Christmas. I've stuck details in today's episode notes.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. In which country are protesters holding up signs with the Friedman equations? Yeah, that's right, it's China. Question number 2. What introduced species are school kids in New Zealand trying to eradicate? Yeah, that's right, they're rats. Question number 3. What was the name of the first ever video game? Yeah, you got it. It was Pong.
Shout outs.
It's November 29. Only 25 days until Christmas. Yikes, I better get my list off to Santa. It's also the birthday today of Little Women author Louisa May Alcott and The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe author C.S. Lewis. Great books both. It's also a special day for these Squiz Kids celebrating a birthday today. Ilse from Pullenvale, Jack from Coburg, Ezra from Harrisdale, May from Adelaide and Lando from Wagga Wagga. And classroom shout-outs today go to Years 5 and 6 and Ms Ramsey at Waruka Primary School, Class 6C and Mrs Hannant at Belmont State School, Class 5-6M at Camden Public School, Class 4P and Mrs Phillips at Floraville Public School, Class 6T and 6B with Mr T and Mrs Brown at Ellamore Vale Public School, Class 4G at Glenbrook Public School, Class 3-4E and Mrs Edwards at Mariong Public School. You still with me? Class 5-6 BM with Ms. Boundy and Mrs. McMahon at Ellison Public School in Springwood. Class 1-2L and Class 3 at St Anthony's Primary School in Canberra. And finally, to Class 3T at St Peter's Lutheran College in Springfield. And a happy birthday to their teacher, Mrs. PW. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout out, or if you're after a classroom shout out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au or fill out the form on our website. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. We'll be back again tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out.